Hello, you beautiful nerds. I wasn't gonna do a review on this movie. Don't get me wrong, I was super excited about this prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, but I gotta be honest, I watch a lot of movies and I want to talk about a lot of them with you guys. But unfortunately, these videos sometimes, I mean, in the words of Sam Jackson,
only problem is, it takes too long.
But after seeing this flick, I had to make a little video for you guys. But enough preamble, let's talk about what we're talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, start your engines, because we're gonna drive full speed into a review of... But first, a prelude. In the year of our Lord 1979, first-time director George Miller put out a little movie called
Mad Max.
It was a huge success, spawned 2 sequels, and the character of Max becomes something of a pop culture icon. Because of a bunch of stuff I'm not gonna get into in this video, the world had to wait until 2015 to get another chapter of the Mad Maxoverse. The film would introduce a new protagonist, Furiosa, and because of a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm still not going into in this video, it took 9 more years before we got to see the Lady Fury origin story that we were promised.
I'm Furiosa!
The darkest of angels.
Now, this isn't gonna turn into a review of Fury Road, my ranking, I liked it, but I do have to take a minute to compare this film to its predecessor. One of the reasons Fury Road was so good was because it was so simple. The story wasn't convoluted and the character development wasn't particularly deep. It was just a spectacular 2-hour chase scene featuring all the most beautiful women that were available that year. Winner, winner. But Furiosa is very different. This film is a lot more patient than you would expect from a film in this franchise. When I was about 20 minutes into this movie and we were still focused on baby Furiosa, I realized that this film was trying to do something different. This installment is hyper-focused on character development. Yes, there is still action and it is big, baby, but that isn't the main focus of the film like the previous film was. So what even happens in this movie? What's the story? The film starts with us following a little girl named Furiosa in a land of abundance. Trees, water, food, all that. Then one day her life is perforated when she is kidnapped by wasteland scavengers and is taken under the wing of a psychopathic warlord named Dr. Dementus. Awesome name. Actually, all the names in this franchise continue to be just amazing. Everyone's name sounds like they're a character from a fucking R-rated Batman movie. Because this film spends so much time with her as a child, we get better understanding of how she turned into the person she is in Fury Road.
If you survive everything we take on together, you'll have all the skills you need to get wherever you want to go.
Man, you fucking with a nigga who got nothing to lose. Man, you fucking with...
I also appreciate how the film shows that even though everyone is doing what they can to survive, there are levels to this shit. Even though nobody is good, not everybody is like super terrible. It kind of reminds me of what Poison Ivy said about supervillains.
Seriously, you do not want to get involved with this bitch. She is like a real, legit bad guy.
Dude, we're all bad guys.
Okay, you're a bad guy, but you're a good person.
Yeah, I don't know, Ive. Bad is bad.
You're like broadcast bad. She's cable bad.
There's sort of a spectrum of humanity throughout the wasteland. There are people like Furiosa's mother. No, it's that chick from Anyone But You. That movie's cute. I don't care what you guys say, that movie's cute. But anyway, there are people like Furiosa's mother, and there are people like Immortan Joe, and a bunch of different characters that fall somewhere in between, which is where I think Furiosa stands. At the beginning of the film, she is growing dangerously close to being driven mad by her circumstances, but she managed to meet one other person who hasn't gone completely insane, and also fell somewhere in the middle of that humanity spectrum. The themes and overall vibe of this franchise have been present since the first film. Yes, again, Mad Max Fury Road is just a 2-hour chase scene, and a dope one at that. But there's another layer to these films where they're actually telling a really deep story. Toward the end of this movie, Dementus gives a pretty great speech about the degradation of humanity and how there really is no honor or glory in taking revenge. It only perpetuates a cycle of madness. And this is a pretty poignant observation from the villain in a revenge movie. But again, this is one of the main points of the first film.
Is it ever good to become a vigilante? Like, is the fact that the world has made you a vigilante, does that mean this movie is always by nature like a tragedy? You know, like, this is not a good point to be
Right,
in.
the humanity that you lose in getting revenge doesn't mean that you get that person back. It doesn't mean that your life goes back to normal. It just means that you've become one of these people.
There's something else that I noticed that I probably wouldn't even thought about if it weren't for our recent conversation with Mariana of the Morbid Zoo.
Why didn't everybody just switch to horses? You know?
Yeah.
Where the horses at?
It's like if you have a society that like that's the standard of social expectation, like we could all be riding horses now.
Right.
We don't have to be in cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
we don't
but
do
it's a
it
choice.
because it is a choice. You can sort of see in the Western the progenitor for Mad Max and how they structure society differently based around how Westerns are centered around horses as the vehicle of choice.
Yeah.
You know, like because they are considered sort of like a connection to the land or whatever, and like are conquering of the land. And so we feel like a kinship with a good horse, you know, if you're in a Western. And so like the fact that Mad Max sets up that same relationship with cars is super interesting. So like how do cars then determine the culture of a society like this?
We see that in Furiosa's home, the Green Place, her people have cultivated a community where they aren't clinging to fossil fuels that destroyed the planet. They use solar panels and horses, and we're led to assume that because they're not contributing to the polluted environment, that this area has become somewhat habitable. I just thought that was a cool way to further the narrative that this wasteland was a product of humanity's choice to be obsessed with cars, and how avoidable this dystopia could be if we just made different choices. Speaking of which, the lore and world building is phenomenal in this franchise. So many wild characters with the most ridiculous costumes and weapons and nipple stuff. There's a lot of nipple stuff in this movie, by the way. It is kind of confusing trying to figure out when this movie takes place. Like the timeline is a little messed up. Because if this is Max right before shit gets really bad and he's this age when he meets Furiosa, that means it took less than a generation for society to devolve drastically into the one present in this film. It's like that episode of Community where they're playing the lava game and over the course of a few hours, the whole school is turned into a post-apocalyptic nightmare with like new religions and cultures and shit. I'm just saying, if it's the same Max, all this happens very, very fast. The continuity for the franchise is all over the place, but it, you know, that don't really matter to me. Maybe Max is fucking immortal. Who gives a shit? I don't care. And yes, I've heard the feral kid theories. I just don't. That's also something I don't give a shit about. Honestly, after Road Warrior, there's not much about the character of Max that I really give a shit about, period. Again, comparisons with Fury Road are inevitable, but one way I think this film excels over that movie is in the character work. I think most of us would agree that Furiosa is the most interesting character in Fury Road. Well, actually, the second most interesting. This guy's nutty nuts. But yeah, in my opinion, and this is not a hot take, I don't think, but Fury Road is more her film than Max's. She's the one who has a true arc. She drives the narrative. She has a cool backstory that we get introduced to. It's great. She's great. That movie's great. And the best thing this franchise could have done was pivot and focus on a new character set in this messed up post-apocalyptia, which is a word I just made up, but that sounds appropriate. I've only seen Anya Taylor-Joy in two things, The Vavitch and The Northman, and Dune Part 2 doesn't count. But she was sensational in both of those films. Like, I don't know why I'm fucking around. I need to just go watch everything she's ever done. And small wonder, she was fucking awesome in this movie too. She is perfect casting because much like my girl Charlize, Anya has such an undeniable screen presence. Like, look at those eyes. Those eyes are crazy.
The eyes, they're crazy.
Much like Max, she's the strong, silent type, but she manages to convey a lot of emotion without a lot of dialogue. She was pretty much perfect in that role, and me saying that hopefully helps you understand how much I enjoyed the performance from my personal MVP from this flick.
The question is, do you have it in you to make it epic?
Watching Chris Hemsworth as Dr. Dementus was so much fucking fun. This was hands down the best performance I've ever seen from him, and that is mainly because this character is so amazing. Dementus is so complex that he allows Hemsworth to really paint with every color in his acting palette. This is a broken, sad, insane man, but he's also charismatic and funny. Like, you see why these people would follow him, even though he's a big old doofus. I would put this his performance up there with Heath Ledger as the Joker, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was up for an Oscar next year. Like, I'm totally serious. There are so many quotes from this guy that are gonna be rattling around in my head all year, and though I absolutely adored Anya Taylor-Joy, the MVP must go to The Good Doctor, Dementis. I've seen a lot of movies in theaters this year, and a lot of them have not been good. This has been a pretty rough year for movies, I'm not gonna lie. Don't get me wrong, there have been some fantastic films that have come out this year that I really dug. But other than Dune and Babes, nothing has made me want to go to the theater more than once. All cards on the table, that's also because I'm trying to see 100 movies in the theaters this year, and I ain't got no time for repeat viewings. But this one, this shit right here.
You remember that shit I gave you last week, nigga? It's nothing, nigga, it's nothing. This shit right here, nigga, this shit right here, nigga, right here, this shit, nigga.
Yeah, I gotta go back to the theaters and experience this again. I will say that even though I love the look of this movie, this film does do something that is present in Fury Road that I kinda don't like, which is when the footage will speed up to make things seem like they're happening faster than they are. It's kinda distracting in Fury Road. I noticed it in this, but it didn't bother me nearly as much. Maybe it's just because this was my first time, because I also don't remember the speed jumps in Fury Road bothering me the first time I watched that. I guess I'll find out in repeat viewings of this one how much that really matters to me, but for now it's just a minor nitpick. This was one of the most satisfying experiences I've had at the movies all year. It's kind of funny that the 3 most fun movie experiences I've had this year are with Dune, a Mad Max movie, and a comedy that has a parody of Dune and Mad Max. And I gotta give all the props in the world to George Miller. As we get this new generation of talented genre filmmakers creating genuinely impressive stuff, Miller has managed to revitalize this bananas franchise into something that feels fresh and new. And in my opinion, with Furiosa, he's finally made a masterpiece in this vast, sadistic sandbox that he likes to play in so much. My ranking, I loved it. Okay, that's it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. But have you seen Furiosa? Did you think it was better than Fury Road? Was this your favorite film of the year or your biggest disappointment? Let us know in the comments. If you like this video, you should watch me and Bill's conversation with the Morbid Zoo about the original 1979 Mad Max film on our show, Does It Hold Up? Also, don't forget to check out the Drunk Banthas podcast every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, where we talk about sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and all the popular art that we love. Also, we do it drunk. Also, check out the Bantha Bunch every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, hosted by your favorite cousin's favorite cousin, Bill. Last plug, I promise, but please go check out our sister station / brother broadcast / gender neutral network. All right, that's enough alliteration. The Nerds at Night YouTube channel, where we have a team of super talented creatives conducting dope interviews and making awesome videos with unique and hilarious commentary on nerd culture. So please check all that stuff out via the links in the video description. But until next time, stay safe, my little guzzling lovers, and may the force be with you.